I'm not much on the blockchain. It's always struck me as a solution in search of a problem, but nonetheless, if you want to follow me on blockchain stuff, you can find me on Steemit and Hive, and to a lesser extent on BitChute. In this video, I will be using terminology that some people consider to be slurs. All of these are merely being used in their discursive way, to talk about the problem, not in order to use them in order to insult anybody, unless they deserve it. Hello lovelies. I've not been so involved in atheist activism and so on for some time now. Other things have seemed more pressing, and it's often felt like everyone said anything and everything that I ever would have wanted to say, and often, but not always, in a better way, or at least a more accessible way. So I haven't really been involved, but I still keep tabs on that community. And particularly there's a new wave of atheist YouTubers, like Godless Engineer and so on, that seem to have sort of displaced a lot of the older voices, the old Atheism Plus people, and whatever you would call the rest of us, I guess. The more vociferous new atheists, and they fall somewhere in the middle, I suppose. They seem quite keen not to offend anyone compared to a lot of the new atheist vanguard, but they're not quite as bad as the whole new atheist clique that never really went anywhere or accomplished anything. But a scandal has emerged within the atheist community that I think is irresistible poop to touch. Michael Sherlock is the head of Atheist Alliance International, or the chairman. He's been suspended for a while, I'm given to understand. And the reason he's been suspended from what is actually quite a prestigious and somewhat influential organisation is because he called religion retarded and called someone a cunt. Okay. My immediate reaction is sort of...
Yeah, and so what?
Because religion is retarded. Okay, so the objection is not the sentiment that religion is stupid, slow, or backwards, or that it literally retards progress by opposing scientific and ethical advances. It's just the use of the word retarded. And the atheist community and the skeptic community, such as it is, we're supposed to be intelligent. We're supposed to be rational. We're supposed to be measured. Now, his comment was none of those things, of course. Well, it was rational. Religion is stupid. But the reaction to it absolutely does not befit the community. And there's some hypocrisy at play here, which, as you know, if you watch this channel, is a bit of a personal trigger for me, you might say. Retarded is slang, but it was originally a technical euphemism, and the use of the term has changed. But we still use it in its original meaning to retard, to roll back, to slow down, to prevent, to get in the way of. You know, we still use it in that sense. When we talk about someone being retarded, that's already a euphemism for older terms that were deemed offensive, and then that became offensive, and then something else becomes offensive. You're always going to offend somebody. Should he have chosen a different set of words? Possibly, probably. Is it worth a reprimand? No. Yeah, everyone knows what he meant, even if they pretend outrage. And it has drawn a lot of attention, which is the job of an activist, right? And it is a harking back, perhaps, to the less delicate ways in which the new atheists would talk about things. Talk about religion as a mental disorder. Some people in this new breed of younger atheists on YouTube seem to object to that as an idea as well, when it fits every single criteria of a delusional disorder accept that the DSM and so on make special exceptions, engage in special pleading when it comes to religion. Is it stupid? Yes. Is it retarded? That's just another way of saying stupid. Is it slow? Does it slow progress? Is it mentally subnormal and uneducated to believe in religion? I would say yes, absolutely. So calling religion stupid should not be a controversial statement for an atheist to make. So if it's really just down to the meaning of retarded, it just means slow. And people say it's a slur against people with learning disabilities, or I don't even know what the current set of euphemisms are. That's how deep this rabbit hole goes, right? People who are not as intelligent as others, who have some kind of brain abnormality, and I know that's considered offensive by some people to say, that makes them less able to learn, less able to cope in the world. It's not an insult to them to say someone else is like them, right? Because they have a genuine issue, a genuine problem, an excuse for the way that they are. Whereas other people might not have an excuse for the way that they are when they act stupid, when they're willfully ignorant, when they choose faith over justified belief. And I've had people object to the term stupid, saying that that's ableist. That how do you describe something as dumb, as stupid, as thick as mince? Right? How do you describe that then, if you can't use retarded, if you can't use stupid? Now in the 90s we would say something like differently abled instead of disabled, right? But that just becomes a slur. So are we just locked in this endless cycle where we come up with new euphemisms and then they become slurs, so we have to come up with new euphemisms and we end up going back to older terms? Yeah, where's the rational end to this? Was what he meant conveyed by what he said? Was he acting in his capacity as chairman of AAI at the time? Take a step back, look at it rationally, and tell me what you can use. Because let me tell you, changing the language doesn't change anything. I'm old enough to remember that first thrust of politically correct language, and even before then. As an example, I often use, there's a TV show over here called Blue Peter. It's a children's sort of edutainment sort of show, sort of variety of things. And at one point they wanted to try and sort of rehabilitate the image of disabled people in the eyes of kids everywhere, worried about playground bullying and prejudice and so on. All, fine, worthy ideas. So they brought on a disabled person as a sort of regular guest called Joey Deacon. What do you think happened? The next day at schools across the land, Joey started being used as an insult. It just didn't work. And in that 90s push for changing the language to call someone differently abled or whatever other euphemism they might have used then, and the language got really tortured and convoluted. In some ways things are better now. What happened? That became the insult. There's just no way out of it. Of course, the other half of the reason that he's been suspended as chairman is because he used the word cunt. Cunt is a gloriously Anglo-Saxon insult. And here's a little background on the English language. We tend to view the parts of English that derived from Latinate languages, French, for the most part, from when the Normans came over, we tend to regard that as being upper classes because of the Normans, right? So that kind of Romanized, Latinized language, that's seen as being elevated. And to this day, we still say, pardon my French, ironically, because the French is seen as the better, more romantic language, whereas Anglo-Saxon, the previous language is seen as guttural and crude. So we still use that term, Anglo-Saxon, to refer to cruder language even. And cunt is one of those. It is a peculiarity of the British and the Australians. I don't know whether the same can be said of New Zealand or Canada, because they tend to be congenitally more polite. But the word cunt does not have the same massive impact here in the United Kingdom or down in Australia as it does in the States. And it is a source of endless amusement to a lot of Brits just how shocked Americans can be by the word cunt, because we tend to use the word cunt as cunting punctuation. Sherlock used the word cunt about one of the people who objected to his use of the word retarded, and then begged off that he was Australian and that it's just not as insulting and it's a much more common term. And he's right, it is. Should he have had his audience in mind? Perhaps. Should he not have used the word? Perhaps. But he's right in saying that there is a cultural distinction. If we're supposed to view all cultures through morally relative points of view, if we're supposed to understand and tolerate all these different cultural points of view, why does that not apply to good old guttural Anglo-Saxon? It's a good question, isn't it? So at the end of all this, what can we really say? Michael expressed a sentiment that most, if not all, atheists share, that religion is fucking retarded, and when someone tried to give him shit over that, he called them a cunt, which is culturally much more acceptable within Britain and within Australia and within the cultures within those countries. Impolitic, impolite, worthy of a suspension? It's just a suspension. A reprimand might have been better, perhaps. He's made some other decisions that certain quarters find dodgy. He brought someone on working for them who'd had multiple accusations against them of various sexual improprieties, but that person hadn't been convicted of anything. So surely, as a rational community that believes in the rule of law and the logical underpinnings of Western judicial systems, innocent until proven guilty, he shouldn't have been excluded from anything. Right? But opinion seems to be divided over that for some reason. Personal experience on the part of some, fair enough. On others, not so much. And when it comes to operating in an official capacity, surely we, of all people, should abide by rationality, by logic, by the logical underpinnings of the Western judicial system. He's been accused. He hasn't been proven to have done anything, so far as I'm aware. But yeah, Sherlock hired him anyway, which was the rational, fair, just, ethical thing to do. Of course, he then goofed. Fair enough. But it feels like this was an excuse to jump on Michael Sherlock for this other thing that he'd done, which was to give someone a second chance who hadn't been proven to have done anything wrong. It just seems like a storm over nothing, and a lot of double standards and hypocrisies around it, which I wouldn't want to or expect to see within atheist activism. Old Fat Punks is part caper, part comedy, part nostalgia and part commentary. It follows three aging punks as they build themselves up for one big, nihilistic last hurrah. You can buy Old Fat Punks at Amazon, Drive-Thru Fiction or Lulu.com. Follow the links below or search on those sites.